Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, this weekend, we have some very interesting fights going on. Of course, we got the former champion Israel Adesanya taking on Imavov, and we got a co-main event that I'm very excited to watch is that of Sharipudin Magomedov and Michael Venom Page. We also have a fight that's going to be going on in the main card as well between Pavlovich and Rosenstrike, which I think is a fight that's kind of going under the radar a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and shed some light on some of these matchups because I think that they're going to be really, really damn entertaining. Let's go ahead and first talk about Pavlovich versus Rosenstrike. And in my honest opinion, I think that this fight is probably going to end up in a knockout. No surprise there. I mean, these two are big guys in the heavyweight division. And of course, Pavlovich is going to be very, very motivated to get a win in this fight. He got his ass whooped by Tom Aspinall, and he got his ass whooped by Alexander Volkov. So I know that Sergey Pavlovich is definitely going to try to come in this fight with the most motivation we probably ever seen because he needs a win. He needs to get a win. He only has 3 wins in his last 5, and he is desperate for a W because he needs to keep that ranking if he wants to keep his dreams alive on becoming a champion in the heavyweight division. Now, I personally think that Sergey Pavlovich still has it in him to pretty much accomplish the mission of getting this job done against Rosenstrike because I think that Sergey Pavlovich is very well known for having a lot of power in his hand, and I know that one punch lands correctly, I think that Rosenstrike is going to sleep. And Sergey Pavlovich was once known as like the boogeyman of the heavyweight division because he was just getting so many wins and it was knockout after knockout. You know, uh, there wasn't that many people that wanted to face him, but ever since, that Tom Aspinall lost, the perception of him as a fighter has definitely changed. I feel like right now more than ever, we've been hearing a little bit more hate heading his way because the fans see him get a KO loss from Tom Aspinall, and then he gets completely dominated by Alexander Volkov, and now people think that like, I really don't know what to think about Sergey Pavlovich anymore. Maybe he's not championship material, but I think that Sergey Pavlovich in this fight is definitely going to come looking brand new and motivated as well. For Rosenstrike, I think that this is a pretty tough matchup for him. His last 2 wins are pretty decent. He managed to beat Gaziev, and Gaziev was a fighter that the UFC was definitely 100% trying to push because, of course, his style that seems to be very heavily, striking, dependent. And he did have like a style that pretty much the UFC wants to push because, of course, they don't like grapplers and wrestlers that much. And Gaziev was supposedly going to be a fighter that was going to be known for his, striking. But Rosenstrike was able to put him away. And of course, we know that Gaziev at that point was undefeated. So that was a pretty good win for Rosenstrike. And then he did manage to beat Tai Tuivasa. But it's Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa is a guy that's been on a very steep decline. In my honest opinion, that was a very decent win. But I think that Rosenstrike in this matchup is going to get completely outworked. I feel like this fight specifically is going to be a little bit of a mismatch. I think that Sergey Pavlovich is going to end this fight somewhere in round number 3, if I'm just being completely honest. All right, and now let's talk about this co-main event because I think that it's very important because I think that Magomedov is probably a win or 2 away from probably becoming a superstar in the UFC if he manages to one like Michael Venom Page. But let me just go ahead and be honest. I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm all in for MVP on this fight. I think that MVP is probably gonna end up winning this match. If I'm just being completely honest with you guys, I think that MVP is just too good in the striking. I think that his resume speaks for itself on the amount of experience does have as being a striker and using that base to primarily get wins. And I feel like Magomedov's resume right now isn't too impressive to the point where I could legitimately feel like I could give him the win in this matchup. Despite all the hype and despite all the highlights, I don't think that Magomedov is going to win this fight. I think that Magomedov right now to this point has been gifted a lot of wins. He fought Antonio Tricoli, I think that's his name, Mackenzie Dern's husband or ex or whatever the fuck he is. That guy should not be a professional MMA fighter by any means. He made terrible decision after terrible decision, and I feel like Magomedov just beat him because literally Tricoli is a terrible freaking fighter, if I'm just being honest. He then goes ahead and beats Armand Petrosian, I think that's his name, and I think that Armand Petrosian got knocked out by a double back fist. When the hell have you guys ever seen that? Exactly. So if you're getting knocked out by a double back fist, I mean, what does that say about like the defense at the professional level? We should have never even seen that. I think that Magomedov definitely has been giving matchups with guys that definitely suck in the sport. Hey, if I'm just be honest, Michael Venom Page, in my honest opinion, is the black belt test for Magomedov to see if he's ready to go to the next level. And in my honest opinion, I just don't see it happening. I don't see Magomedov beating Michael Venom Page. My honest opinion, I feel like Michael Venom Page is probably going to get in this match based on resume alone and based on what I've seen in terms of the film studies that I've seen Michael Venom Page performing so far, not just in the UFC, but also in his past fights, because I do think that Michael Venom Page has superior decision making. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of people like, oh man, it's fighting, like, oh, chaos, it's the fight, I get what you guys are saying. Michael Venom Page is not a chaotic type of guy. He creates order and chaos, and Magomedov is the complete opposite. He like does shit, and they land. I don't think that that those type of tactics are gonna work against someone like MVP. MVP is more cerebral, and I think that literally skill for skill in a 50-50 MVP take, if I'm just being honest. All right, and now, of course, for the main event, we got Israel Adesanya taking on Nursuddin Imavov, and I've heard a whole bunch of takes from MMA YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, and I honestly really do feel like there's not enough people that film study. I wish we could sit down and film study with you guys, but the UFC doesn't fucking like whenever we use their videos. You get freaking copyrighted, and of course, we can't have those issues. But until I find a YouTuber do it in a very clever way, I just don't see how we can freaking sit down and do film studies so we could actually get a better understanding of the sport. But anyways, that's a different topic for a different video. Let's go ahead and talk about this fight here right in front of us, which is, of course, the former champion in the middleweight division, Israel Adesanya, versus a rising yet another contender, Nursuddin Imavov. So I think that this is pretty much going to be a base versus base type fight, and we're going to get more into that theory because, of course, with Israel Adesanya being the slightly taller, slightly longer fighter, I think that he definitely has to fight a specific way against Nursuddin Imavov, who's obviously cannot fight this fight being Captain Obvious, trying to pressure someone like Israel Adesanya, because if he does, he's going to freaking lose this fight. Nursuddin Imavov, let's just talk about this very, very quickly, because he is the shorter guy with the shorter length, shorter reach. Let's go ahead and talk about this very, very quickly. There's a whole bunch of takes out there going on right now that Nursuddin Imavov has to pressure Israel Adesanya, which, it is true. He does have to find certain sequences where he can land his offense, but he cannot pressure it, and he cannot do it off the gate. He needs to be a little bit more covert with his pretty much attempt at trying to reach Israel Adesanya. Now, it doesn't mean, just trying to land leg kicks or long strikes. It means making Israel Adesanya engage. And how do you do that? Well, it's something that we saw Dricus du Plessis do very, very well against Israel Adesanya, and that's making fall for feints. There's a lot of people out there that said that Israel Adesanya just sucks at counter striking. And that's completely freaking false, because Israel Adesanya has a very decent counter-striking game. But what Dricus du Plessis did against Israel Adesanya was make him become offensive so that Dricus du Plessis could literally land counters in between Israel Adesanya's offensive schemes. And the way he did that is by making sure that he goes to the fence. So Nursuddin Imavov cannot just pressure, come in into Israel Adesanya's pretty much stand right in front of him in the 50-50. He has to be smart. He has to figure out how he can get Israel Adesanya to come to him. And Israel Adesanya cannot fall for the same traps that Dricus du Plessis did, because there's a lot of film study right now in Israel Adesanya, and there's questionable decision making whenever it comes to Israel Adesanya's game, because it seems to be that whenever he is fighting, he's not questioning, when or how to maneuver whenever he's trying to land offense. So Israel Adesanya, in my honest opinion, has to fight. He has to fight this fight with great decision making. And in my opinion, I think that he needs to be defensively responsible like we've never seen. And a way to keep someone like Nursuddin Imavov at bay, which he's definitely gonna try to find some offense or be aggressive at some points, is to literally feint, 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 feint like a motherfucker. Because when you feint, what is the guy going to do? A shorter fighter. He's going to have to go in a high guard. He's going to have to, get into a more defensive stance. When you get in a more defensive stance, Israel Adesanya is able to control the clock a lot more. If he's able to control the clock a lot more, it looks like he's winning. And that's what we've seen from Israel Adesanya so many times, is that he lands a little bit of strikes and it looks like he's winning because he's able to control the clock. He's able to control the offense. He's able to make his opponents defensive, and it kind of does shut down the offensive threshold of his opponents. So that's something that Israel Adesanya needs to go back to, and not try to fight Nursuddin Imavov the same way he tried to fight Dricus du Plessis. The way he fought Dricus du Plessis, in my honest opinion, was so freaking out of character from Israel Adesanya. He was unrecognizable in that fight. All the things that made Israel Adesanya great up until that point was not prevalent. It was not a good pretty much description of what we know Israel Adesanya to be. He needs to go back to fighting smart. He needs to go back to making great decision making. He cannot just go in there and try to outdog someone who is younger, someone who is definitely going to have a lot more physical prowess, because of course Nursuddin Imavov is 29 years old and in the peak of his physical prime. Of course, Israel Adesanya is 35 years old. He's no slouch, but of course, let's just be honest, at 35 years old, he has to be at some point. So yeah, Israel Adesanya's game definitely needs to go back to being a little bit more mental rather than, he cannot be Captain Obvious. Neither can Nursuddin Imavov. I think that this is going to be a great fight. Whoever could find the better offensive schemes and fight a smarter fight, obviously is going to win this matchup, but we'll see. Short man versus tall man. Classic striking. Of course, Nursuddin Imavov is a guy that does like to mix in his grappling. He does like to mix in, some wrestling takedowns at some point. But Israel Adesanya, up until the Dricus du Plessis fight, where he made a lot of fucking mistakes, my honest opinion, has always been known to have some really good takedown defense. We'll see if Israel Adesanya still has those capabilities. But yeah, I think that when it all comes down to it, my gut is telling me Israel Adesanya. But if we see Israel Adesanya, the same versions that try to fight Dricus du Plessis, Nursuddin Imavov is gonna win, my honest opinion. But like I said, my gut feeling's telling me Israel Adesanya, so we're gonna go hit with Israel Adesanya. Anyways, that's it pretty much, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoyed this video, pretty much what I would like to ask you guys is to consider subscribing, leaving a like. As always, is a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.